And we are recording this meeting tonight, but we're not broadcasting it.
Good evening, all, and welcome to the January 17, 2023 City Council Workshop. It is now 5:31 p.m., and I'm going to call the meeting to order. Mr. Delatte, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Scarrow,
Here.
Councilmember Bethel,
Here.
Councilmember Moore,
Here.
Councilmember Sutton,
Here.
Councilmember Albrecht.
Here.
Mayor, we do have a quorum to conduct business of the city of Portland.
Okay, thank you very much. Item number 3 is Leisure and Entertainment District presentation. The City Council will receive a presentation concerning the proposed redevelopment of the Leisure and Entertainment District. Deputy City Manager Delatte.
I'm going to lead off, Mayor. Some of you may remember, when we started the process of a new sports field complex, that was an exciting project. I mean, it was really something that put us on the map, and it was one of those inflection points in the city where a lot of things changed. I want to tell you that this project is very similar to that. You're going to see tonight that this is a monumental change in Old Town, and something that's going to put us on the map, no doubt. We're very happy so far just with the conceptual plans, and what Dave and Elizabeth are going to show you tonight are some things that we've been working on. They're by no means the end product, but they are going to show you what this could be. And once we get that done and kind of get the presentation done, then Brian's going to talk about kind of how we get there, the steps we're going to take to get there. So I think you're going to be really pleased with the presentation tonight. I'm really excited about it. Like I said, it's really going to be different. So after we finish that, I'm not sure if we'll have time tonight in the presentation. It just depends. But we are going to talk about, Kristen's going to talk about this Families in the 5th District programming, which is really kind of talking about what we're going to be doing over there in that area to kind of kickstart family activities and getting people used to going over to Old Town. And then we've got funding and grant opportunities that tonight on the regular agenda that Sarah's going to talk about, and we'll get those kicked off. So there's a lot of moving parts of this project, like there are a lot of our projects, but the final result is going to be really something very special. So with that, I want to turn over to David and Elizabeth. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Share some of these very preliminary ideas. I'll say in advance, sometimes these days with computer renderings, things look really finished and really polished, but it's a work in progress. It's just beginning, and there's lots of additional development to be done. So the first slide here we want to show you just kind of shows an aerial view of sort of the 9 blocks that are the core of the district, and right in the middle is the block that we're focusing on, bounded by 6 on the north, the 5th on the south, and then Houston and Elm. And as you know, it has an existing building there that we are saving, but we are doing a lot with it. And so you can see here another view of the center block. In our presentation, we're probably may refer to it as a town square. It's a little bit like a town square. You're ultimately going to decide what it's called. As we get a little bit closer, Elizabeth will tell you a little bit about some of the pieces.
Yeah, we're very excited about this. I think if there's anything that we have learned from COVID, that how important it is to integrate the outdoors back into our lives and what we do in leisure and in entertainment. And this we see as a really great opportunity to do that. What we're thinking here is to design a place that has significant elements, significant components in there that are flexible and that are adaptable and that can be really tuned to a variety of activities, whether it is for a family or an individual or a group or an organized group, large and small. We wanted to present to you spaces that would be significant, identifiable, and that appeals to the whole community, that appeals to anyone from 9 months old to 99 years old. This is what we'd like to see a place like this happen. And what you see there in the slide is kind of definitive significant spaces that we might want to develop further. There's the building, there's the existing building, and we'll talk about what goes inside the building. But there will be a restaurant in there, and then there will be an area that we're kind of calling it the Commons. You know, it's an open area where kids can just run around and they can play tag or chase or you know, do a variety of activities, you know, like toss the beanbag balls or frisbee, whatever. So it's going to be an area that probably will have astroturf type, you know, things, a ground, you know, so you can actually easy to maintain and take care of. And then there will be an area that's called the pergola. You see that kind of a curved area there. That's going to provide shade, you know, for the families or the parents to be watching the kids as they run around. And then beyond that would be what we call the vending area, which is along the street. You know, we have the food trucks, you know, that can be parked there, and then you can get your food and you can, you know, sit under the pergola, and there you'll see there are many, many places to sit, you know, and to eat. And then there is an area that we're calling a nature play. One of the things that we're thinking about with this is that we wanted a place where, not so structured in that the play is imaginary, you know, for the children, you know, so that they can just kind of play whatever they can imagine that they're playing. They can be playing chase, and they can be playing, you know, pretending to be pirates or whatever, you know, and so it's not so structured that they cannot exercise their imagination. And so some of this nature play area is what we're talking about here, that will integrate some form of water feature in there, but not the kind of water feature that you see all over the place where it's just the jets, you know, and they're playing, you know, because we do have to deal with wind, and it does splatter and all that. So we're going to create something there that actually has a water element, but that seems natural, you know, that they can, you know, touch and get wet, you know, but still play. And then there's an area that we're called the Shady Grove area, which is a very shady, and it may have kind of the ground covers like gravel, you know, where you can have little coffee tables and chairs where you can kind of sit and maybe read a book. You know, it's kind of a quiet place. There's going to be a very active place over there at the Commons area and the play area, and then there's a quiet area as well. And then there are also areas like the terraces that we're going to show you a little bit more, you know, where there's a second floor and a third floor terrace outside that you can kind of get a different view, you know, of the city. And we also have an area that's called an amphitheater type seating, where, you know, people can sit, and maybe there's a concert or whatever. And so the idea of being able to experience this place in different levels, different elevations, it's not just a flat place, but there, you know, you get different perspectives. And when you're up on the terrace, you get a different feel than when you're running around in the Commons or sitting in the Shady Grove area. So we can move on to show you a little bit more.
So the same view without the labels. If you look at the building, the existing building is the sort of center rectangle, and then along Houston Street are additions for a kitchen for the restaurant and some storage, and then around the whole perimeter is a porch or porches, and in the center you can kind of see the highest roof area is a clear story monitor that brings daylight into the center of the building. So the core, you know, 75% of the square footage or more is the existing building, and then ancillary additions around the perimeter. So we show two different terrace designs. This is towards the Fifth Avenue side, the south side. One of them is shown here. It sort of has second level that has the ability for an event room, a conference sort of meeting space, and then some outdoor seating. And then a little bit of a different layout here that has a center kind of monumental stair. There's a lot of development to be done on that, but that portion to the south is all new construction. And looking a little bit closer at the Commons area, you're looking down on the terraces to the left, and at that triangle in the middle is kind of an arrival feature, landscape feature that steps up. We're calling it kind of a step pyramid, but it's a great place for a monumental sculpture or annually for a Christmas tree. And then, of course, you can see yourself the commons, the pergola, the nature play area, and the amphitheater beyond. Around the perimeter, we're showing development that isn't there yet. If you look beyond, it's not really part of our plan, but we think the district should encourage a little bit higher density development around the square that's very pedestrian oriented, that has porches and walkways along the center to reinforce that sort of town square feeling. Looking from the other direction, from the northeast, you can, in the foreground now, you can see the pergola and then the commons. And then now here, the first time you can kind of view a performance stage along the side of the existing building. And the porches that are around the perimeter are a little bit clearer in this view. And then here's an eye-level view of one of the porches right by the stage. And then the commons or the green to the right. And in the distance, you can kind of see the ramps going up the green space. That's a 1 to 20 slope ramps. Technically, it's not a handicap ramp. It's just a slope sidewalk. Very gentle slope, so you don't have to have railings or protection on it. And the idea there is that we let this switchback go up the hill there, and that becomes the accessible route to the pergola. There's also a stair up there. But at the same time, it creates kind of an inclined seating area for people to sit if they want to watch their kids play or if they want to watch a concert.
And this is kind of shows you a little bit about what it'll look like, you know, from across to the building. You'll see that the restaurant would be on your right there, and there'll be outdoor seating. There's in the porch area. And there is going to be a raised popped-up area from the existing building that is a raised area that will bring in more light into the interior of the existing building to be more open and more transparent. And you can see to your left there is the terraces. Now, in this particular scheme, you will see that on the second floor of the terrace, there is an area there that's for a small conference room or a meeting room for about maybe less, you know, up to 50 people. You know, so it's a place that would be good for rental with somebody that wants to have a small meeting or a birthday party or something like that.
This view from 6th Avenue gives probably the clearest view of the existing building and how we're modifying it because it's very intact. You can see the gable roof there that shows the profile of the existing building, and then the porches that are kind of lean-to porches around the perimeter, and then that center monitor, that clear-story monitor that brings daylight into the interior. So the intervention, I mean, they're simple additions to the building, with the exception of the monitor. That's a fairly significant modification, but still very feasible and allows us to take advantage of the asset that's already there. And then a view of the terraces from the south, from 5th Street side, and we think that all of these things are up for discussion and public input and participation, but we think that the ground floor of these terraces would be nice for some covered recreation like ping pong or, you know, some outdoor chess and the kinds of activities. Maybe you check out some you know, maybe foosball, but some covered activity, perhaps more for adults while the kids are out running. And then a view from the commons directly back at what we see as a stage. This shows a large stage. We had other sketches that had it quite a bit smaller. There are lots of different variations.
The stage too might mention that it goes into the building and it's also outside the building too. So it's divided here. You can see there's a component of it inside and out. So it can be opened up or it can be closed off and have two different areas. This is the interior showing an open space. And we wanted to keep it that open because it allows you to do whatever you wanted it. You know, we can envision like a Christmas market, you know, going up in there where you have different booths and stalls and it's covered, it gets cold. Or it can be anything, or it can be, you know, food service. You'll also see that up above we have a mezzanine area there in the building, so that provides additional space for you to enjoy that area. And this is a rendering that shows the ice skating rink. You know, if you wanted to convert that to an ice skating rink, you know, that can be be done as well. So there's a lot of flexibility there for your use.
Another view of the, of the porch, this one along Sixth Avenue on the north side. This would be the restaurant, but partly indoor, partly outdoor, right along the street, so it has a bit of kind of an urban flavor. And then this turning the corner towards the commons, the restaurant kind of wraps around a little bit. You can kind of see the stage in the distance on the right, and then a little bit of an idea of how the ramp winds up towards the pergola beyond. And then looking from the terraces down, this being the second level terrace looking down on the green, and then this is the third level terrace, which we think can be high enough to get a view of the bay and a view of Nueces Bay. Pretty spectacular vistas up there. This rendering doesn't show that because the trees are shown up tall, but we did some studies that indicate that we can get up to a level that can capture some pretty dramatic views.
And you can see, like on these terraces, there are great places where people, like a family gathering, you know, if they wanted to have, you know, their cousins or whatever, and you have several tables together, and it could be a really neat spot to have a birthday party.
The thinking is the terraces, and a lot of this, we're going to be drilling down on operations, on different how the facility can be run, and but our initial thinking is that terraces are more sort of snack oriented or drinks oriented, and can be event centered or every day. It's kind of however demand requires. But the restaurant on the north end is a full-time, full service restaurant. And then here's a view from the pergola, looking across the commons towards the building, and the somewhat elevated view here also, and you can kind of look at the walk and as it meanders down towards the commons. So it there's like Elizabeth said in the opening comments, there are lots of different spaces, lots of different activities, lots of flexibility to operate the building in different ways. And they say the building, it's really more than a building, it's really a kind of a destination. And so it's pretty exciting. We have a series of sketches that I'm not really going to take any time on unless you want to drill down on some of the floor plan ideas, but just suffice it to say we're looking at having an office for operations, the restaurant to the north, which is on the left, the terraces with a couple of different iterations, and the pergola, the play area. The mezzanine level, looking down on the stage and on the ice rink if you have one set up, and the terraces to the right kind of show this one shows sort of a stair-step perimeter, so that you have a lot of tables that are kind of bay window or sort of promontory sort of configurations. Makes it, if you're in an elevated position like that, to have a table that's sort of nested into a corner is nice, so everybody gets a corner table. And then the third level, a couple of different ideas. Obviously, these are very rough sketches. We're showing them intentionally to contrast with those rather finished-looking renderings, so to reinforce the notion that the renderings are, I don't want to say misleading because they're very evocative and we love the design, but we want you to know that really what you're looking at here, these very rough sketches, is more the stage that we're at right now. We're at the very, very beginning stage, and we want you all and everyone else to think about activities more than architecture. What do we want this place to do? How do we want it to feel? And then the architecture will follow. And what we've done here is make our best shot based upon the discussions we've had with staff and just our studies of the site. But it's very open, it's very fluid, and it's very exciting.
And you can also see how, you know, pedestrian friendly this will be, you know, with the head-in parking along the square there, you know, all along the blocks, and very walkable, you know, and even within the town square itself, you know, there's a lot of places you can walk and invite you to go up and down and even walk up on top of the pergola, that shaded structure there, you know, and so there's quite a bit of activity.
So this concludes our presentation. We can entertain questions or comments now, or we can wait till Brian does his thing and talk later, whatever your pleasure.
I have one quick question. I just want to make sure I'm thinking about this the right way or clear. The the building as a whole, will that be 100% climate controlled? Is there going to be a piece that is and a piece that is always open air, or is it flexible to do both?
If you look in this view here, you can see the terraces to the south there that are clearly open air terraces. That area we see as predominantly open air. You can see above the second level, but below the third, there's a corner there that has rolling doors that can come down, kind of like Snoopy's, and it can be air conditioned or it can be open air. The rest of the core of the building we see as being climate controlled with big rolling doors, so that when the weather is beautiful, you can shut it down, open it up, and let the whole thing be outdoors. So ideally, I mean, we live in a climate where honestly we don't take as much advantage of the outdoors as we should. If we've got shading, and after all, I mean, kids are running around outside enjoying it, probably even if it is hot. So I think you'll find that you don't need to run the air conditioning as much as people often do. It'll be designed for ventilation, natural ventilation.
Yeah, and there'll be fans too, inside,
The big
the
fans.
big fans that you've seen, they call big ass fans, but,
It's the company name.
It's a company name, is that, yeah.
First comment, I like it. It looks good. I think it, the conceptual aspect of it, it fits what we're wanting to do. Small question. I know it's conceptual, but the head-in parking, is there any way to angle that parking? Because unfortunately, we see a lot of people around here, they have a lot of issues with head-in parking. And so I was just wondering if we could just kind of.
You absolutely can. And I would say that we showed it 90 degrees because you have a wide right-of-way. So you have enough space to make 90-degree turns. We also did not at this level contemplate redirecting the streets to be one-way. And so if you have two-way traffic, it might be better to have it 90 degrees if you can, because what'll happen is somebody's going this way, there'll be an angled parking on the other side. If it's open, they'll take it anyway, and then they're making more than a 90-degree turn.
You'll always have it, understood. No, I'm just thinking of like Fredericksburg,
Yeah,
bidirectional, all angled parking, all the way
yeah.
up and down the main.
No, it can totally be angled, and that's kind of a traffic analysis. We could do it either way.
Perfect.
Good comment.
Thank you.
I just have one comment. I don't really have any questions. I like it. I think it's good, and I think it is fluid enough that regardless of what we decide we want to do there today, I think it has the fluidity to be able to change over time as those activities change. So I don't have any negative critiques about this at all. It's much better than what I was expecting. So it's good work. I like it.
That the comment prompts me to say that one thing we were going to say opening up is that the entire district actually is very special because it's a grid. It's the only part of Portland that's a classic street grid, and that makes it more pedestrian by nature. It makes it, provided you have low-speed traffic, which you do, it makes it suitable for on-street parking, and it will encourage this kind of pedestrian development to just grow from this core outward. And your comment about the fluidity and the flexibility, cities evolve and they adapt, and good cities have frameworks that are designed to be adaptable, and that's what this is. This is a down payment on an entire district. So you're right on target. That's the intent.
Absolutely love it, especially the not so much the building side, but the outside, how, everything is still focused back onto that stage. If it's not in use, people probably won't even notice it's there, but if we have concerts or whatever, you have your kind of amphitheater in the back, and then also the pergola itself is, you know, it also views back towards that stage. I really like those touches.
I'll just say one other thing about that, you know, the stage. If you want to have a big production of something, you know, you can actually have portable stage that extends it into the commons, you know, and then you can really reach out to all of the people around.
I've got a comment that I'd just like to throw out there. We talk about comparing this to Fredericksburg a lot, and everybody thinks about Fredericksburg and the main street and the walking, the shopping, the drinking, the dining, all of that stuff. But one of the places that we enjoy to go when we're in Fredericksburg, they have a nice park that is kind of a town square park that's very similar to this, and it's been broken into a few phases, so I think there is still some ongoing construction. And it's very similar to this, where it's very pedestrian friendly, but they also have a really nice playground set. And actually they have two. They have it for, and they're right next to each other, but there's one that's, you know, say ages 3 to 7, and then one that's ages 8 and up or something like that, so that there's not conflict, but so that it's appealing to a wide variety of ages. They also have, similar to this, kind of the AstroTurf, but it's more of almost like a running track, like that rubbery type, but it's got a lot of give. It's kind of cushiony, so that if my child falls off the playground, I don't worry as much about something happening because it's a little bit spongy. But I think that that's something that, as we go forward with this, we need to think about, is just the playground or playgrounds. I really like the idea of the nature space and the creativity, but I also, I know, especially in the summer when it's hot, but really anytime, when we go to Fredericksburg, my wife and I like to sit under the shaded area at the picnic tables and watch our kids play on the playground, and it's all within view and it's all close by. And so I do think that this provides a whole lot of things to do for the adults, but the kids will need to kind of just try to find something that wraps them in as well, that's permanent.
And the nature play area in that corner, that by the corner of Elm and Fifth over there, is very much of a placekeeper or an initial concept. We like the idea of it being nature themed because it gives it sort of a special quality about it, and also that being involving imagination and sort of other, you know, sort of non-structured play. But we absolutely see play apparatuses, climbing and swinging and some of these kind of, you know, within that same area. So I think that there's a lot of design goes into playgrounds, and it may be undersized, it may be just right. We may want it to spill over into a different part of the park, and even the ramp, the amphitheater ramp that goes up there. There's a place, you don't really see it in this, but there's an opening in it that is a pathway down to 6th Avenue that actually provides an interesting little, route, I guess, for somebody to just sort of walk or explore. And so we think that incline is going to be a place where kids like to climb and run, and we need to make it safe so that they can do that. So even outside the playground. So the entire park, there's a park in Houston called Levy Park that is really nice. There's several that are new parks that are sort of the same genre of this, and they're very exciting, but they're very carefully put together, and that's our intent here. And so we want to emphasize the fact that this is just the beginning, and getting feedback like we're getting right now will help us drill down and just make it better.
We were in Houston a couple of years ago for TML, and walking through that central park that's there, and a big hill, a big mound with manicured grass or turf. That's a cheap way to entertain kids for a long time. They just roll down and down and down. So that kind of thing is great. Just something that's kind of natural and appealing to the eyes, but also that a kid can kind of get lost in and just play for hours on end.
No, just that.
Actually, that's an idea. A rolling downhill is something we don't have yet. And maybe one of these inclines should have a section of it that just is exactly that, just to roll, that's a great idea. So that kind of thing is something we can really go with.
No, I like the aspect of what you're talking about, a natural play environment. That's one thing we miss a lot nowadays.
Yep.
So definitely the hills to roll down and so forth. Who knows where this is going to lead us? If we do want to implement any sort of playground equipment, I'd like to keep it a minimum, just from my perspective. I mean, the kids in Portland played on a hunk of cheese for literally decades. So we can keep it small, keep it simple, add it to the mix, but I like the natural aspect of it.
Thank y'all.
Okay, thank y'all. So we can move on to project delivery now. Let Brian kind of talk a little bit about how we're going to get there.
This project is obviously a focal point for our community. There's a lot of momentum, with this project right now, so we'd like to continue to capitalize on that momentum, and take Richter's, exceptional design and turn it into reality. And so we've spent, at a staff level, quite a bit of time trying to figure out what is the best way to deliver this project. There are some projects that we've seen across the state that are similar in nature, that take multiple phases over, 4, 5, 7, 10 years. And we didn't want to get into a situation where we start building a portion of the project, and all of a sudden, funding or other reasons, begin to delay the project. So we've asked, Richter to take a look at, can we divide this into 2 phases? The first being the block around the warehouse itself, so to redevelop the entire block, 4 streets, 5th, 6th, Elm and Houston, all together. How quickly we can do that, and then as funding and as development occurs, continue those streetscapes throughout the rest of the district. So with that phase 1 that is highlighted in yellow, we're recommending to deliver that through the construction manager at-risk process. It's a similar process that we've used on the community center. Did that very successfully. Really the type of schedule and the type of delivery method that was used for that project, very similar to what we're proposing here. Under that scenario, you would have Richter as the prime design on the project, and with your agenda item later this evening will be to engage Richter for the final design on that project. As their subconsultants, they would have LJA Engineering who do all the civil site work and do the reconstruction of 5th, 6th, Elm, and Houston. They're also planning on engaging Mark Schallberg to help with how do people move through the warehouse, through the site, through some of those event planning services. In the main meeting, we'll talk in a little more detail about the schedule, but we've already begun with the house demolition on the project and cleaning of the warehouse. Tonight, you're receiving the presentations on the conceptual design, but then also Sarah Munoz is going to be laying out a series of resolutions to try to acquire grant funding for all of the streetscape projects that are occurring around this development. Those grant applications are going to be turned in beginning in January and throughout the rest of 2023 to try to acquire funding for those streetscapes throughout the Old Town District. We are recommending at the next City Council meeting that the City Council authorize the release of a construction manager at risk RFP, and that'll begin the process of selecting the construction manager for the project. In the beginning in March, we'll begin the Families on 5th series, and during the regular meeting, Kristen will kind of go over that. That is an opportunity to get residents used to coming down to the Old Town area to retain that momentum, but then also to allow opportunities for public involvement and public input during those events. There'll be a series of public gatherings where we'll have, led by Shelby O'Brien and Kathleen Weisenberger, we'll have opportunities for residents to engage with us, engage with our designers, to make sure that a lot of those decision points that David and Elizabeth mentioned this evening, that we're gaining appropriate public input. At the end of March, we would recommend interviewing CMAR firms with that contract to be awarded on April 18th. That is well ahead of construction, but that'll allow the construction manager to work with Richter as they're proceeding with their final design. And so all of those cost estimating or value engineering or just constructability questions, that we have the construction manager on board as part of the team as we're going through those decisions. Richter would finish the final design by early fall of 2023. And about that same time, once the final design is really nailed down, City Council make a decision on the facility operator. We are proposing about 4,000 of the 17,000 square feet to be a leased restaurant space. We could also have an operator operate the entire facility. And so those are decisions, as we're working through the public input, through the final design, with the city council, we're able to make that determination. We are proposing that construction will begin in middle of the fall, 2023, and take about a year to complete the site work for the block and then the 4 streets directly surrounding the block. So a substantial completion November 1st, 2024. We would then begin Christmas on the Coast preparations so that we could have perhaps the ice skating rink, a second Christmas tree, all the Christmas festivities that you would come to expect in a site like this. And then ongoing, as funding and development allows, through some of the grant funding, streetscape improvements to kind of continue to permeate throughout the district so that this is one cohesive leisure and entertainment district. In terms of budget, we've, in your agenda build, outlined kind of a very preliminary budget. These are just ballpark numbers at this point based off the conceptual design. But more than anything, the potential funding sources, you'll see there's no fewer than half a dozen different funding sources for this. A significant number of the funding sources are grant funding. And we've already had preliminary meetings with the MPO, with TxDOT, and with GrantWorks, who's our grant administrator, to try to outline what are all of those types of funding sources that are available for us for this project. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. But again, during the May meeting, we'll go into a little more detail with Kristen with kind of the interim programming for the project.
You might have covered it, just simplified, phase 1, phase 2 timeline.
Phase 1, we would hope to be finished by November 2024. Phase 2, ongoing as funding allows.
Okay, thank you.
A couple of questions. First, is there any issue, I guess, or conflict with having the final design done prior to determining who the restaurant operator will be and what design layout, what their needs will be? I mean, how will we kind of manage that so that we're not having to go in and either give some kind of tenant improvement allowance for them to reconfigure, or them have to come in with quite a bit of capital at the beginning to reconfigure?
Sure. The restaurant space will be the kind of last space that's designed. So during the initial design efforts, that'll be designed kind of as a white space, kind of a white box. And then as we get further along with the selection of the operator, we use their input to do the final kitchen design, do all those types of final design elements. We're not doing any rework or issue credits.
Okay, thank you. My next question, we did the Leadership Portland class a couple of weeks ago, and one of the topics that came up, and I know several of y'all were there, was about the sports fields and about the public access to the sports fields. And that's been, those have been open for 5 years now, and that's still something that people are interested in and talking about and bringing up. And so I think it's important also for us to discuss that here with this facility. And I saw in the preliminary concept that it looks like most of it is fenced and there's certain entry and exit points. And I do think that there's obviously a need for city control, and it's finding that balance between protecting our investment and giving the public access, and where do you blend that? But I certainly think we need to think a lot about how much of this is going to be open 24 hours a day versus what's going to have controlled hours. And something that may need to be thought of or incorporated in design would be like the bathrooms, for example. If those have a separate door, that if the building is closed and it's late in the evening, but the park is open and there's people there, can they still access those facilities? And so, or if there's water fountains or anything like that that would traditionally be kind of within the building, but that the use would extend to everybody that's in the park, because I certainly don't want to be in a situation where either it's not friendly enough because the building's closed on Sundays, and so therefore if you go, you can't go to the restroom because it's Sunday, or it's closed between these hours and these hours. And so I think that'll be an important thing to talk through and consider, and obviously talk through with the council as far as what that looks like from an operational standpoint, staffing, those sorts of things when we get there.
Yeah, we've actually started talking about some of those details, although there's so many details to cover that those kinds of things have already kind of come up. And the idea of fencing around this whole facility was really about creating some containment for kids, so parents feel more comfortable that their kids aren't running out. The other thing is if we do have events there that you want to control the gate, you could close those spaces and control it. But you're right. I mean, the whole idea of public access is really important. And obviously, this is going to be lighted at night, so we'll create some safety. We've actually talked about the bathrooms and location accessibility. We've talked about having an actual office there where people can, rent, whatever it is, yard toys or badminton equipment or whatever it is. Check it out or rent it for activities during the day. So I think all that programming is something we're going to lean heavily on Parks and Recreation to help us with too. So, but yeah, those are all great points.
One thing I would like to consider, with the new softball complex and so forth, we saw people out there testing out their new pitching wedge on it and so forth. We don't want that, definitely. But with new technology, the new camera surveillance systems and so forth, I'd really like to explore those options. And if it's well lit, maybe leave it open and under 24-hour surveillance and see how that goes for us. Just something to consider.
Right.
And there's a lot of research that we still have to do. And there's models across the state that we can look at as well.
Just one last thing. I mean, I've kind of, said this before, but operationally, when it comes to the restaurants and anything like that, I really, hope that the city isn't going to be involved in that side of it. I think that being in the real estate business is fine. We're releasing that out, but private businesses are very good operators, and so that's what I hope to see on that. And I'm not talking about renting out things that Park and Rec would do. I mean that's a nice thing, but when it comes to those facilities, hopefully we'll see that outside of the city.
And that's point well taken, because this whole process is about creating a catalyst for private development. And so we want to do that. And the only reason we're talking about a restaurant space is because it is so integral to this facility that we need someone to do that. And I can't imagine any scenario where the city would be running a restaurant. But it would be more along the lines of what we talked before about the Arts Center in Corpus Christi, that the city owns it, but it's actually rented out with a concessionaire to operate it. So that's kind of what we're envisioning to begin with, but that could change too. We want to try to pick the best way to do it.
Okay, everybody's got their question. Zach, you had something else?
Really just kind of echo the rest of council's comments. I do want to see it be as open as can be, and maybe there's like I don't know, kind of like a low fence or something like that, like it's going to keep kids in, but it's not going to give off the impression of it not being accessible. Other than that, I think it was just good conversation. I don't have anything further.
Brian, can you go back to the calendar real quick on next one back? A couple back. Right there. Thank you. So I just want to reiterate, between March and April 2024, 2023, thank you. 2023, public input and public involvement will occur on this project. These are conceptual ideas. The council, most of us are hearing this final presentation for the first time. Some of us have seen some parts here and there, but this is very much conceptual and very much will be public input will be garnered over a couple of months. So again, y'all all know my philosophy. The team always gets it right. The team, those that were in Leadership Portland learned that lesson the other day, that the team will get it right. The team dynamic usually has the better ideas than any one individual. So we encourage that, we want that, we need that. So very excited about that opportunity. Are we going to continue? I'm sorry.
Since we do have about 10 minutes, we're going to do it in the main meeting, but if Kristen can talk about exactly what you were talking about, the opportunities in May and April, March, April, and May,
Right.
for public participation around some of the events.
Council. So we're looking at an opportunity to create that sense of place here that people get used to coming down here. And it's a great opportunity to have storyboards and information and get that feedback. So our first event will be St. Patrick's Day. And what we're doing, we're not recreating or doing something new. We're joining with businesses in Old Town. And so Cass Real Estate does their annual St. Patrick's Day. So they have agreed to join with us and move over to that property. And so we will have that evening their regular mixer. And then after that, we will be having live music. And we will soon be making an announcement because now we do big concerts here in Portland. I don't know if y'all know that. So, you know, we do stuff big here now. So we're just keeping things big. So that'll be our first event. And then after that, we will work with Clayton's Meat Market and do a crawfish boil in April. And we have, if you went to WinFest last year, Dwayne Dopsy and the Zydeco Hellraisers, we've already hired them. So we're gonna have music and crawfish and fun. Again, partnering with a business in the Old Town area. So that'll be on Friday, April 14th. And then we're going to do a barbecue cook-off. We're working with Battling Barbecue. They actually do sanctioned cook-offs. And so we're working with them to run that. It kind of goes back to what y'all are talking about, restaurants and does the city do that? Things that we don't do, we're gonna get with the people that do those things because we want it to be excellent and we want people to have a good experience. So we're looking at that April 28th to 29th. And then Cinco de Mayo. So Families on First are gonna be at Cinco de Mayo, Friday, May 5th. We're gonna have food trucks. Also we'll have mariachi band and then some live music. So these are not heavily programmed activities. These are gathering, meet people in your community. And again, at every one of these, we will have an opportunity to tell the story of this land, tell the story of what's going to be happening here, because we don't want anyone to come in and go, what's this? Y'all are doing stuff here? Why? We want people to know the why. We want them to get excited and we want to get their feedback. So these are great opportunities. And then moving forward in the summer, we recognize that it's hot during the summer, so we won't be making people stay out there all day long, but we will do evening things. We'll do movies, do some pop-up shops, things like that, and engage the Old Town businesses. So our focus is really to create opportunity for those who do business in Old Town to come to this lot and have those events with us. So we're really excited to continue to plan these and have opportunity in that area. Questions, comments?
Let me just also add that at these events, we plan on having interactive displays that allow people who are there to see what these conceptual plans are, to have whiteboards where they can write their own ideas, make notes for us about what they think. So it won't be a completely discrete public input session. There will be public input from a wide range of sources, including these types of events where we can get people's input.
It's exciting. Thank you.
I just wanted to make a comment. The thing I like about this too is it holds us as a city accountable as well to make progress, because now we're going to have people going, we're going to have people excited, and it's like, I think there's somewhere on the island, like when you go over the JFK and it's on the left and it's like Hampton Inn coming summer 2019 or something, you know, and that sign is all that's there. And it's like, you know, sometimes those things kind of stall out, and so we'll be accountable. People are going to be excited and expecting it. I also think, you know, it's great to support the businesses over there, but that support that we're giving them and those partnership opportunities hopefully result in increased business for them, but also then encourage others to invest and start their business in Old Town because of that exposure that they're getting. So I think this is a great idea to just, everything's going to feed together and create the synergy that we need to get it up and running.
Brian, you have anything else? Mr. Wright?
I think we're done, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Well, it is 6:20 p.m. We're going to adjourn the workshop, and we will begin again at 6:30 with a public hearing. Take a small break.